On October 19, 2017, a telescope on the summit of Haleakala in Hawaii detected a faint point of light moving across the sky. At first glance, it looked like nothing special. Just another rock in a solar system full of debris. But within hours, astronomers realized something was wrong. This object was not orbiting our sun. It was moving too fast. It was diving into our system from above the plane of the planets, plunging toward the sun at 54 miles per second. It was not a comet. It had no tail. It was not an asteroid. It was tumbling through the void like a discarded bottle in the ocean. They called it Oumuamua. In Hawaiian, it means a messenger from afar arriving first. But the name was far more accurate than they intended. Because just as it passed the sun and began its journey back into the dark, it did something impossible. It accelerated. Physics tells us that an object moving away from a star should slow down due to gravity. But Oumuamua sped up. There was no gas venting from its surface. There was no visible propulsion. It was as if something, or someone, had pushed the throttle. For decades we have scanned the skies listening for radio signals, waiting for a beep or a message from a distant civilization. We assumed first contact would be a mathematical equation or a greeting. We were wrong. First contact was not a radio wave. It was a silent flyby. And while we were debating whether it was a hydrogen iceberg or a nitrogen rock, it gathered the data it needed and left. If you believe that humanity deserves to know the truth about what is out there, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Because the mainstream narrative is incomplete. Consider the shape. The initial data suggested it was 10 times longer than it was wide. A perfect cigar shape. Or perhaps, a flat, thin disk. Nature does not create objects like this. Asteroids are potatoes. Comets are snowballs. Oumuamua was structured. When scientists analyzed its rotation, they found it was tumbling in a specific way, maximizing its exposure to the sun, or perhaps, scanning in all directions. The scientific community panicked. Behind closed doors, the debates were heated. Publicly, NASA and other agencies called it a natural anomaly. They tried to fit the data into models of comets and asteroids, but every model failed. If it was a comet, the heat of the sun should have evaporated its ice, creating a visible tail and changing its rotation. But the telescopes saw nothing. No tail. No dust. Just a solid, dark red object accelerating against the pull of the sun. This leads us to a terrifying possibility. One that Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb was brave enough to suggest. What if the acceleration was not natural? What if Oumuamua was equipped with a light sail? A thin, reflective membrane designed to harness the pressure of sunlight for propulsion. If this theory is true, then Oumuamua was not a rock. It was a probe. A piece of technology manufactured by an intelligence older and more advanced than our own. And the most disturbing part is not that it came here. The disturbing part is how it arrived. It did not come from a random direction. It came from the direction of Vega, a star just 25 light-years away. But here is the catch. It entered our system at a specific speed relative to the local standard of rest. This is a cosmic frame of reference used to navigate the galaxy. It was sitting still in the galactic parking lot, waiting for our solar system to run into it. This was not an accidental encounter. It was a buoy. A marker. Or perhaps, a sensor triggered by our radio leakage. We have been broadcasting our existence into the void for over a century. Our television signals, our radar, our radio waves have formed a bubble of noise around our star. Anyone with a decent receiver within 100 light-years knows we are here. Oumuamua entered that bubble, swept past Earth at a distance of just 15 million miles, and then adjusted its trajectory to leave. Think about that. 15 million miles is a stone's throw in cosmic terms. It missed us by a hair. Or maybe it did not miss. Maybe it saw exactly what it wanted to see. But the story does not end in 2017. Because recently, astronomers have found a second object. And a third. The sky is not empty. It is full of these silent visitors. And if Oumuamua was the scout, the question we must ask ourselves is simple. Who is sending them? And what happens when the scout reports back? To understand the true danger, we have to look at what happened just a few months ago. A new object was detected. It was designated as 2024 PT5. They called it a mini-moon. They said it would orbit Earth for a few weeks and then leave. But look closer at the data. These objects are finding us with increasing frequency. Is our technology getting better, or is the traffic increasing? Imagine you are living on an isolated island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You have never seen the outside world. One day, a drone flies over your village. It buzzes around, takes photos, and flies away. You have two choices. You can believe it was a strange bird. Or you can realize that you have been discovered. Oumuamua was that drone. And the reason it accelerated away from the sun was not outgassing. It was a maneuver. A course correction. We are currently tracking thousands of near-Earth objects. But there is a subset of these objects that defy explanation. Dark. Fast. Artificial in their movements. We call them natural because the alternative is too frightening to accept. But let us strip away the fear and look at the physics. If an advanced civilization wanted to explore the galaxy, they would not send biological bodies. Biological life is fragile. It requires air, water, and protection from cosmic radiation. It dies quickly. Instead, they would send machines. Autonomous, intelligent, and patient. In 1960, physicist Ronald Bracewell proposed a theory that chills the spine of every astronomer who truly considers it. He suggested that superior civilizations would not broadcast radio waves into the void, hoping someone hears them. That is inefficient. Instead, they would launch automated probes to every star system in their neighborhood. These are called Bracewell probes. Their mission is not to conquer. It is to sit and wait. They park themselves in a stable orbit, perhaps on a moon, or disguised as an asteroid, and they listen. They monitor the local radio chatter. When they detect a civilization reaching a certain level of technology, they wake up. They send a signal back home. This is known as the lurker hypothesis. And Oumuamua fits the profile of an active probe perfectly. Consider the durability. When Oumuamua approached the sun, it was subjected to intense gravitational forces. If it were a loose pile of rubble, like most comets, the gravity of the sun would have torn it apart. If it were a hydrogen iceberg, as some skeptics claimed, it would have melted significantly. But it did not. It maintained its structural integrity. Calculations showed that for Oumuamua to survive that spin and that speed, it had to be solid metal or a composite material with a tensile strength far greater than any natural rock. It was tough. It was built to last. Imagine you are a spy in a foreign country. You do not wear a bright neon uniform. You wear the clothes of the locals. You blend in. If you are an alien probe entering a solar system filled with asteroids, you do not design your ship to look like a chrome saucer. You design it to look like an asteroid. You coat it in organic compounds that turn red over millions of years of cosmic radiation. You hide in plain sight. This is why the mainstream media dismissal of Oumuamua is so dangerous. They looked at the camouflage and said, "It is just a rock." They ignored the engine underneath. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the unknown, please take a second to like this video. It helps our signal reach more people who are searching for the truth. Now, let us talk about the energy. The acceleration we saw was non-gravitational. In rocketry, we use something called the Oberth effect. Spacecraft dive close to a planet or a star to use its gravity as a slingshot, gaining massive speed for the return journey. Oumuamua dove past our sun at a perihelion distance that was dangerously close. It maximized the gravitational boost. It used our own star as a battery to charge its kinetic energy for the trip to the next target. This implies a flight plan. A flight plan requires a navigator. We often ask, Where is everybody? This is the famous Fermi paradox. If the universe is old and full of stars, we should see aliens everywhere. But we see nothing. The silence is deafening. But maybe the paradox is based on a false assumption. We assume that if they were here, they would land on the White House lawn. But why would they? We do not introduce ourselves to the ants in the garden. We observe them. We might even experiment on them. But we do not treat them as equals. There is a concept in zoology called the zoo hypothesis. It suggests that Earth is essentially a nature preserve. The advanced civilizations are watching us, strictly adhering to a rule of non-interference until we are ready. Or until we become a threat. Oumuamua might have been the camera check. A routine inspection of the enclosure. But here is where it gets dark. The data it collected. It did not just measure the sun. It passed within scanning range of Earth. It could have mapped our magnetosphere, analyzed our atmosphere for industrial pollutants, and triangulated our radio sources. It knows we have split the atom. It knows we have altered our climate. It knows we are a volatile, aggressive species that is beginning to leave its home planet. In the cosmic scale, a civilization that can split the atom but cannot control its own aggression is a fire hazard. You do not let a child play with matches in a wooden house. If the probe reported that we are dangerous, the next visitor might not be a scout. It might be a sanitizer. We have to ask ourselves a difficult question. If you were an advanced intelligence, and you saw humanity today, would you say hello? Or would you worry? Tell me in the comments below. If you found a primitive civilization like ours, would you reveal yourself, or would you stay hidden? I read every theory you post. The reality is, we are not the masters of space. We are the new kids on the block. And we just made a lot of noise. The acceleration of Oumuamua as it left the solar system was the final signature. It was leaving faster than it arrived. It was in a rush. And now, astronomers are spotting more anomalies. Objects that blink out of existence. Stars that vanish without a supernova. The sky is changing. This brings us to the most chilling realization of all. Oumuamua was small. Hard to detect. But what if there are bigger things out there? Things that do not need to hide? We assume that space is a vast, empty ocean waiting for us to sail across it. We look at the stars and we see potential destinations. But what if space is not an ocean? What if it is a dark forest? In a dark forest, every civilization is a hunter armed with a gun. They move silently through the trees, trying not to make a sound, stepping over the dry leaves, holding their breath. Because if they reveal their location, another hunter will shoot. Not out of malice, and not out of hatred. But out of fear. Because in the dark, survival is the only rule. The moment you reveal your coordinates, you become a target. We are the only ones shouting in this forest. We are lighting campfires, we are sending radio waves, and we are singing songs into the void. And Oumuamua might have been the sound of a twig snapping nearby. A sign that someone heard us. A sign that the camouflage has been broken. The acceleration data from Oumuamua tells us one thing clearly. It had an engine. It had a purpose. And most importantly, it had a destination. It was not drifting aimlessly. It was traveling with intent. Consider the concept of the von Neumann probe. This is a theoretical spacecraft designed by a civilization far more advanced than ours. It is a self-replicating machine. It travels to a star system, finds raw materials like asteroids or moons, mines them, and builds copies of itself. One probe becomes 2. 2 become 4. 4 become 8. Within a few million years, which is a blink of an eye in cosmic time, these probes would fill every corner of the galaxy. They would be everywhere. If Oumuamua was one of these probes, then it was not alone. It is mathematically impossible for it to be alone. If we saw one, there are likely millions of them passing through the dark spaces between the stars, forming a silent, invisible grid around our galaxy. A surveillance network that has been in place long before humans learned to make fire. This changes the entire narrative. We are not waiting for first contact. First contact happened thousands of years ago. We just did not have the eyes to see it. They have been watching us build pyramids. They have watched us fight wars. They have watched us detonate atomic bombs. And now, as we begin to launch our own rockets, they have decided to take a closer look. The timing is suspicious. For 4 billion years, Earth was a quiet planet. A biological curiosity. But in the last 100 years, we have become noisy. We have filled our orbit with satellites. We have leaked radar signals deep into space. We have become a civilization that can manipulate matter and energy. In the eyes of a Type 2 or Type 3 civilization, we have moved from being a harmless animal to being a potential virus. When you see a virus replicating, you do not negotiate with it. You do not ask it what it wants. You study it. You map it. And then, if necessary, you sterilize it. Oumuamua passed closest to Earth not to say hello, but to scan our capabilities. It measured our technological signature. It analyzed the composition of our atmosphere to see how much industrial pollution we are pumping out. It calculated the trajectory of our development. And then, it hit the accelerator. It rushed back to the deep dark to transmit the data. The message has been sent. The package is delivered. System Sol. Planet Earth. Inhabitants are aggressive. Technology is accelerating. Threat level is rising. If the scout has done its job, the next phase begins. And history tells us that when a primitive civilization meets an advanced one, it rarely ends well for the primitives. We are not the explorers in this story. We are the natives standing on the beach, watching the sails of great ships appear on the horizon, having no idea that our world is about to end. But Oumuamua is just a small object. A tiny probe. A single camera lens. To understand the true scale of the threat we are facing, we need to look at the places in the universe where the hunters have already been. We need to look at the graveyards. There is a region in space where thousands of galaxies should be, but there is only darkness. It is a hole in the universe. A void so massive that it defies our current understanding of cosmology. It is called the Boötes Void. If Oumuamua was the scout, then the entity capable of creating that void might be the hunter. Could a Type 3 civilization be expanding across the universe, harvesting entire stars for energy, and erasing galaxies as they go? Are we living in a galaxy that is next on their list? The data suggests that the universe is not empty, but that it is being systematically cleared. The silence we hear is not peace. It is the quiet aftermath of a storm that is moving in our direction. I have analyzed this terrifying possibility in the video appearing on your screen right now. It explores whether the Boötes Void is a natural anomaly, or the first visible evidence of a galactic predator that is slowly turning off the lights in the universe. If you want to know what happens when the sanitizers arrive, you need to watch this next. Click here to see the truth about the Boötes Void. Until next time, keep looking up.